And thank you for joining us for the Cost of Access Conversations at the Intersection of Equity and Affordability. When discussing affordability in higher education, it's often framed in terms of tuition and financial aid, but affordability really is about whether students can fully participate in college without the constant financial stress, including costs of living, food, books, transportation. And the equity goes a step further. It's not just about giving everyone the same opportunity, but about removing systemic barriers that make it harder for first generation, low income, or even undocumented students to access and complete their degrees. Research shows that when well-intended systems like FAFSA, scholarship programs, they can still create new obstacles for students that they're aiming to help. So today I'm joined by
Hi, Stephanie Edgett, Director for University Dining and Retail Services at UTSA.
and
Hi, I'm Jason Galvan. I'm an undergraduate admissions counselor too here at UT San Antonio.
and me, Lucero Coronado. I am a program coordinator at UT Health San Antonio. And together we'll talk about more than just policies. We'll highlight the real experiences students face and how these shape what affordability really means today. But for now, Stephanie, why don't you tell us about the promises and pitfalls of FAFSA?
Yeah, so when we think about the FAFSA is supposed to make college more accessible, right? But what happens when it does the opposite? And as we all know, some recent overhauls with FAFSA have occurred. Many expected it to simplify financial aid, but for a lot of students, especially our first generation and minority students, new barriers have emerged. One major issue is the complexity of the new form, and while the Department of Education reduced the number of questions, the requirement that contributors create an FSA ID and use the IRS data retrieval tool has confused many families. For students whose parents don't have Social Security numbers or who rely on paper tax records, verifying their info has become a challenge. And on top of that, there are digital access problems. The 2024 rollout was delayed and technical glitches blocked many from submitting their application. According to a Gallup Lumina survey, 1 in 4 applicants reported difficulty submitting the FAFSA, and 51% said the timing of their financial aid offer influenced whether or not they wanted to go to college. As you can imagine, this disproportionately affects first generation students who may not have someone there to help them navigate the form and the process, since no one else has gone through it before them. And it would even be different today for someone like myself who went through an older version of FAFSA. A survey by study.com found that 79% of first gen students said FAFSA related issues impacted their college decisions. And many spend hours, some over 7 hours, just trying to fill out the form, only to run into errors or delays. And when aid offers are delayed or incomplete, students may change their school plans, delay enrollment, or even drop out entirely. So even though FAFSA has been redesigned to help, the problems are still there and they're still real, and maybe even worse for those who need it most. So without effective support, think multilingual resources, better tech, more outreach, these very students risk being left behind despite reforms meant to help them. And so for some students, FAFSA really isn't just a form. It's the first major barrier they face in trying to access higher education.
Wow. Well, definitely did not know that. But I also know that a lot of students also depend on FAFSA, but aside from FAFSA, they also go into scholarships. Jason, why don't you tell us about scholarships and some of those hidden barriers?
Yeah, so I'm talking a little bit more about this. So especially even after FAFSA, scholarships are often seen as a safety net. But who really gets these scholarships? So when we talk about, for example, merit versus need-based aid, it's important to recognize that a lot of the merit-based criteria, like a high GPA, AP classes, honors, IB, research experience, or students who also have extensive or even a big load of extracurriculars who are very involved, tend to favor students who come from well resourced schools. So if you've had access to tutoring, advanced courses, or simply more time because you're not working to support your family, you've already started you already started in a different place, if that makes sense. So that's why academic merit scholarships, even though they reward achievement and leadership, they don't always account for the structural barriers many students do face. I was one of the students that also faced a barrier like this as well. Programs like DPS, Terry Scholars, and even our Top Scholars program here at UT San Antonio are incredible opportunities for students, but they also show how competitive these spaces are as well, and how many capable students never even reach that profile of unequal access. On the other side, need-based aid like FAFSA is also built to build the bridge that gap FAFSA is built to bridge that gap by looking at income, family size, and financial need, especially. And locally here at UT San Antonio, we do have a Bold Promise program. So that's an example of institutional aid actually removing tuition as a barrier for those low income students. But even with these kind of programs, there's still what I call working in admissions, especially like an application fatigue. So long essays, recommendation letters, and multiple deadlines that hit hardest for students who work multiple jobs or support their families in various different ways. So there was a study that actually saw a research study by Osigura, Denson, and Hurtado in 2009. It was about Hispanic students and um, the Gates Millennium Scholarship Program about the results of promising students extending to the third year of college. So basically, the Gates Millennium Program scholars even showed by their junior year, that third year, about half of them were financially supporting their families, which led to them not focusing as much on their studies, declining GPAs, not doing good in academics, not feeling a part of the institution, the body, so on and so forth. So we also can't ignore international and undocumented students too, who are completely left out of the FAFSA process, Pell Grants, and many institutional or private scholarships because of citizenship requirements. Even state level aid varies widely. So, for example, I believe 41 states run 82 different support for service programs. So, your opportunities do depend heavily on where you live. And while financial literacy workshops and outreach campaigns definitely help students navigate the system, unfortunately, information alone can't fix the eligibility barriers or the inequities built into many aid programs, even some of the ones that we have at our institution. So we talk about affordability, but if the systems for help are built for people who already know how to use them, then we're missing the equity piece entirely.
Wow. That is that is a lot of information I didn't know.
Yeah, it's a
But
lot, it's a mouthful.
well, I do think that all of that has to also have a really big effect on the student's mental health and persistence, which I'm sure it's going to be affected, right? So now let's talk about what the cost of access really means. So this really goes beyond like just the financial side. For many students that are challenged, like are being challenged, this isn't just about like how they're going to pay for college, but it's also like the emotional and mental toll that comes with the ongoing financial uncertainty that they're experiencing throughout their, you know, education journey. Research shows that financial stress directly impacts students' mental health, their sense of belonging on campus, which we know is ideal in order for students to succeed in their degrees. For example, a 2022 study by Luna Tolver and Saria and Stelbolton found that first generation and low income students experience higher levels of anxiety and depression when they are unsure on how they're going to pay for tuition, rent, food. And this stress doesn't just like stay in the background. It's everyday stress, an everyday stressor. So another study by Stapleton and Saria published in 2020 shows that students dealing with these financial strains, they're likely to feel disconnected from campus. They're higher likely to miss class. To work longer hours, which all increases the risk of them dropping out and not completing their degrees. So access isn't really just about getting the foot in the door, so not just like making it onto college, but it's also about having the support services for students to stay, enroll, and being able to complete their degrees. That was a lot. um, But now let's rethink equity and affordability. How do we make equity real in college affordability? What do you guys think?
Yeah, so, I think from some of the stuff that we talked about today, really just simplifying the FAFSA, making it a little bit easier, and what does that mean in terms of providing more bilingual access or community-based aid workshops to help some of those first-generation students walk through it and supporting them. Increasing high school college partnerships as well, and just providing again, that space to walk through how to fill out the FAFSA and submit it correctly.
Right, and then I just want to touch on really quickly about expanding digital mental health tools and also peer mentorship programs because students need support that's fast, accessible, and also meets them where they are, right? So if you want to address equity in a real way, you have to start by listening to the students and the families themselves. Their lived experiences should also shape how we design our support systems, in my opinion, because they know better than anyone what barriers they face on a day-to-day basis and, the journey they've gone on to get where they are now, and also what resources actually do make a difference for them to be successful.
Yes. Wow. Thank you all for answering. And as we are wrapping up today's conversation, it is clear that affordability isn't just about paying tuition or books. It is about whether students can sustain their education without sacrificing their mental health, sense of belonging, or even just basic needs. Research continues to show when the systems are too complex, like FAFSA, or when support isn't accessible, students who already face the greatest barriers are the ones affected the most, especially first generation and low income students. Moving forward, equity in higher education means redesigning these systems with students at the center, simplifying the processes, expanding support services, and truly listening to the lived experiences of those navigating these systems every day. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us on the cost of access. And thank you to Stephanie and Jason for joining us and sharing their insights. We hope this conversation encourages all of us to reevaluate what affordability truly means and what it will take to truly achieve it. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.